Now are you host, sir?
Okay, thank you. This is about the authentication. What is the different type of authentication, and what is the advantages and disadvantages of these types? I do this graphically to explain that I understand the three different types of authentication. The first is the basic authentication. Here the normal process when the user is authenticated for the first time to the system. Suppose that we have one server for the database and a server for the web API and a client that is connected to your system. The first time that the user input to the system will send the username and password to the server. Then the server will query this information to the database to see if this user is a correct user. Then the database send the OK to the server, and finally the server send OK to the client. Subsequent request to the server from the client using the basic authentication. As you can see, is the same process. The user need to send the username and password. The server will query this information to the database. The database responds to the server, and finally the server responds to the client that is okay. The first time and the subsequent time is the same process. Next, the advantage of this is very easy to implement this type of authentication. The disadvantages, I detect two disadvantages. The first disadvantage is that the user need to, or the client need to send username and password every time that needs something to the server. So the username and password are exposed many times, and the possibility of someone catch this information is high percent. The another disadvantage is there are many queries to the database because each time that the user enter to the system, the server needs to consult the database. Next is the token Auth. This is a simple token. The sequel or the process is the next. The first time the user send the username and password to the server query to the database responds OK to the server, and the server generates a token, and this token is sent to the client, and at the same time this token is saved into the user table next to the user and password of the user that is authenticated. Subsequent request to the server using this technique, the user send only the token that was cached in the previous step. Next, the server query to the database only using the token. The database send the OK to the server, and the server send OK to the client. The advantage of this is very easy to implement, and another advantage is the username and password are not exposed many times like the basic authentication. As you can see, the subsequent request to the server only the user send only the token, doesn't send the username and password again. But the disadvantage of this is there are many queries to the database. For each time that the user is request something to the server will consult to the database to validate the token. So we have another type of token that is JWT token. The process is similar to prior process. In the first time, the user send the username and password to the server. The server query the database. Database respond okay to the server, but in this time the server generates JWT token. That this token is an special token because have three parts: have a header, has a payload, has a signature. These three parts are joined by a dot, as you can see here. This is the header, that, payload, that, and signature. The subsequent request to the server, the user only send the token to the server, and the server not need to consult the database because in this token has the necessary information to validate into the server without the necessity of consult the database. Is the server that is validate the token, and then the token send the okay to the client. The advantage of this is the username and password are not exposed many times, and there are not many queries to the database. That is the advantage of this is very difficult to implement. Is very difficult to implement this type of token in your server. These are the three forms that you can use the authentication. The first is recommended for a small application. Maybe the second is recommended for a medium application, but if your application is a big application with many users interact many times with the system in a day, the recommended is to use this type of authentication because the disadvantages, the username and password are not exposed many times, and there are not many queries to the database because the server is who validates the token instead of the database. Is all. Have a question about this?
Like sir, when we refresh our page, so token is change. Like I'm first time login, okay,
Uh-huh.
so I'm refresh my page, so token is refresh or not?
Okay. In this case, the token is saved into the client. This token need to be saved in the client. When the server send the token by the first time to the client is responsible of save this token in maybe in local storage, in cache, etc. But if the client lost this token, need to authenticate again to get a new token. Need repeat this process. But when the
Okay.
server send the token, this token need to be saved into local storage in that client. For the subsequent request, the client take the token from the local storage and send to the request to the server via header of the request.
Okay, very clear.
Yeah, clear.
Okay.
Good morning, Edgar. I have a question.
Yes, tell me.
How much time does the token stay in the server or in the cloud?
Um, you can configure the time of the token, the expiration time. It's
Does it
configured.
have a default configuration? For example, if I don't configure the time.
I don't know. I think so that is necessary to explicitly say configure the time. I don't know if there are a time default.
Okay, thank you very much. Very clear.
Thank you. Okay, if you see, for example, in Postman, when you are when you make a request to the API, you can.
Yes sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sorry. Um, for example, in Postman, when you make a request, uh, For example, the request get, post, put, etc. You can indicate in the authorization the type of authorization. For example, if you say basic authorization, you need to write username and password each time that you make the request. This corresponds with this process that I explained here. In the basic authorization, you need to write the username and password every time. Every time that you make a request, you need to send always username and password. If you make another request, maybe get, post, put, etc., you need to send always the username and password, as you can see here. But if you are using, for example, Vire, instead of send a username or password, you send the token. But this token, as you can see here, has the dot. I can copy this to the block. Here the dot. This is the first part of the token, and you can separate this, and you have the three parts of a token. Okay, this is the a token, an example of a token of the type JWT token. So the recommendation here is use this in project because it's more secure of the other type of authorization. Okay, but is more difficult to implement. Any question?
No, sir.
No, thank you very much, Adele.
Okay, thank you very much. Saludos, Oscar. Hasta luego.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a
Thank you,
great
sir.
day. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye, sir.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye bye, sir. Thank you.